So, guys, welcome to another episode of Bit Inning, and today we have Pranav. Pranav, and I know a lot of you were waiting for Pranav to reappear, and I'm really glad that Pranav these days is in India, and he took out time, and so we were like having a conversation around a lot of things, and definitely around the growth of stable coins, because since Pranav is in US, so he's seeing all that progress happening right in front of his eyes, that what is happening there, what is happening in US in terms of stablecoin, DeFi, Clarity Act, Genius Act, all those developments that are happening in US. So I was, so curious to learn so many things from him. And then while we were discussing those things, because there are a lot of questions on, because you guys keep throwing this thing that our country should launch a stable coin on Ethereum. And initially, even I was very excited about it. That why not a country, when it is so easy for any country to just launch a stable coin like US, why countries are not doing it? And I'm telling you, it is not that easy. It is very easy for US, but it is not easy for any country to just launch a stable coin on a permissionless blockchain. And today we are going to discuss that why it is not easy, what are the concerns, and what are the solutions. Because yes, definitely innovation is there, decentralization, permissionless, all these things, they look nice for people who love decentralization, who love this non KYC thing, who love freedom, who love openness, who love permissionless, being permissionless on internet. But then there are regulators, but then there are governments who are watching it, who want to be a part of this innovation, but they also want to keep a check. They want to know who they are dealing with, where the money is flowing, how much is flowing, who is holding what. So, I mean, all these questions today we're going to discuss, and we're also going to discuss what is the future of stable coins other than US. I mean, are there countries who are going to do it like very regularly? What is going to be the model? How they're going to do it? And for that, we have a special guest, Alex. But before I go to Alex, I formally want to welcome Pranav. Pranav, welcome back. I hope everything is fine.
Yeah, everything is going really well, and it's really nice to see the stablecoin ecosystem and like everything evolving since the last
Mm.
year. Uh, Tether and Circle used to be the only stablecoins, and talking about this in their own realms, and it's really nice to see
Mm.
governments, banks, big institutions, as well as pro technology
Mm.
ecosystems evolving and adopting stable coins. And really great to be talking about in this particular podcast. I'm really happy to talk with Alex, who actually has been working on this particular problem for a very long time, and would love to know more about his project Rails, as well as in the current stance, what is currently missing in permissionless chains, what could be the concern of governments and central banks, which is hampering it to take it to the next stage. Right now, stable coins are at a stage where there is some sort of adoption. We do see a lot of crypto native and crypto friendly people knowing about stable coins. But what's the next step? How do we make it as useful that eventually all the world is connected and interoperated through stable coins? That's an interesting piece and bit. And I think the project Rails is sort of looking towards solving that by making sure the regulatory angle is taken care of. In regulators and institutions are always considered, and have the right tools as well as applications to get over it. And just see how we can take stable coins to the level where we can call it like mass adoption. So welcome, Alex. Would love to know and start with your background and how did you come to know came up with this project called Rails.
Sure. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, guys. So I'm talking directly from London, as we discussed before backstage. So my background is I have always worked with computers all my life. I studied electrical engineering at university and also physics. And then I went to work for Siemens. You know, it's this big German multinational company. I was there for over a decade. And in Siemens, I started my career as a developer, software developer, but then I migrated into product management in Siemens. And so when I first heard about Bitcoin, it was early 2013, and I became a Bitcoin miner. I had some spare GPUs in my shed, and I put together like a mining rig. And those were good days because you could still mine Bitcoin with GPUs. Nowadays, you cannot do this anymore. But it felt like, you were printing money, basically, right? Because every day I would go back and I would see, oh my, I made, I don't know, it was not a lot. It was maybe like, $30 or something per day. But then again, Bitcoin was $50 at the time. So, it was always making like a full Bitcoin per day. And then from that point on, there was this forum called Bitcoin Talk that everyone, nowadays, I just came back from Asia. I went to, Token 2049. There's like 25,000 people. Back in those days, if you go to a conference, there were 50 people. So the only way you could talk to other people is in Bitcoin Talk. And so a member of Bitcoin Talk hosted an event in Miami called the North American Bitcoin Conference in 2014. And I went and I met Vitalik Buterin, and he was about to launch Ethereum. So I invested in Ethereum ICO, and then I became very kind of close to many projects, helped some other ICOs launch. I built block explorers and wallets and things like this. And then eventually I launched this website called CoinSchedule, which became the biggest ICO portal back in 2016, 17, had more than 10 million visits per month. And then after CoinSchedule, I left CoinSchedule and I met my co-founder, Marcos. And the interesting thing about this story is that, I'm Brazilian originally, and Marcos is also Brazilian, and we were both living in London. But Marcos worked his whole life in an investment bank. So he's a banker, he knows everything that Kashif was talking about, and also Pranav about, regulation, the banks need to follow regulation, and the regulators this and that. So this is the world Marcos came from. And I was coming from the world where we want no regulation, and, we are degens, and we want decentralization and all that stuff. But we got together, and the vision I had with me and Marcos, the vision was the same, was that irrespective of how exactly it's going to pan out, in the future, everything is going to be tokenized, because it was very obvious, that the technology is much more efficient. And so this is why we built this company called Parfin, and Parfin eventually built this other product called Rayls. And so what Parfin does is Parfin builds software products to enable banks to use blockchain. So there's like a brokerage system, custody, things like this. And then Rails is a full-fledged layer 1 blockchain system to enable banks to finally use blockchain properly. And I think what we have that is different than other companies is that because I would say 70% of our C-level comes from banks. We really know deep, how banks think and how they operate and what they need. And not that we haven't, also talked to many banks all over the world when we're getting requirements. But I think internally in the company, there's a deep knowledge of how banks operate. Yeah. And so this is what Rails is, and this is what I think we're going to be talking about a bit here today. It's like a blockchain, an EVM blockchain, which is different from other blockchains. And I can explain, happy to talk about how it is different, but that we believe is the right solution for financial institutions, including banks. When I say banks, by the way, I kind of mean financial institutions in general, right? Because even if you look at our current clients, most of them are not even banks. They are like, credit card acquirers and, FMIs and things like this.
All right. So, Alex, thanks for that introduction. Alex, whenever you reach out to any bank or any government or any regulator, and when you discuss about stable coins, let's start from stable coins. What is their first apprehension? Are they eager to do it and they don't know how to do it, or they know how to do it but they still don't want to do it? I mean, what is the first reaction when you talk about stable coins with them?
So even not just stablecoin, but you need to understand. So the way that the bank works is that they are happy making money the way they are. They don't really have to change anything. Any change is actually a threat. because they're happy the way things are. This is why banks are kind of slow adopting new technologies. They like, I mean, there are banks like JP Morgan, they're very innovative. They have their own blockchain, they have research going on and stuff. But most banks, they are slow to adopt new technologies because unless there's a reason, unless they're going to make more money with it. So what's been happening, I think, in the past was that, if you approach the bank, they would say, well, you need to tell me exactly how is it that using this blockchain thing is going to make me more money or save me money or something, because otherwise I'm not gonna adopt it for the sake of adopting it, which is, you can't argue about the thinking, right? But I think what changed in the last since the beginning of this year is because when Trump came in the office and he kind of completely revamped, the SEC and the CFTC and all these regulations and things, and now banks are allowed to do crypto. What's been happening is this. I'll give you an example, like from Brazil. Some of our clients are in Brazil. Some of them are the largest banks there, and Brazil imports a lot of things from China, like you do, right? Which country doesn't import from China? And so what's been happening is that a lot of the Chinese suppliers, they don't want to get paid in dollars anymore. They want to get paid in Tether, or maybe mostly Tether. For some reason or another, like Tether is the kind of default stablecoin today. And so the banks now approach us and say, help me. I know, like, I don't know how to do this. How do I even pay Tether? I don't need, what is Tether, right? And so I think we've seen a shift where before, companies like mine were trying to pitch things to banks and saying, oh, you're going to save money, you're going to do this and that. And they were like, oh, I'm not so sure. To now, they coming after us, asking for help to actually use stablecoin. So in that sense, stablecoin, I think, became like the first killer app for blockchain, at least for the financial institutions, because now there is, because of the regulations and all of that stuff, banks are not afraid to use stablecoins anymore, and they actually are coming after companies like mine to actively use stablecoins, because there's lots of advantages. If you ever made a Swift payment, I had to make Swift payments 2 weeks ago because we were participating in this or setting up these side events in Singapore, and you pay a supplier, and they don't receive the money for 2 days, and you don't know where the money is, right? And with stable coins, if you send Tether or USDC or any stable coin, it arrives instantly. Okay, and you can see where it is. You open a block explorer, see exactly where the transaction is. So it's so much more efficient, and people are starting now to realize this. So I think stable coins is like we're just in the beginning. There's going to be a lot of things to happen, lots of innovation, lots of ideas. I mean, we're really just in the beginning.
Right. So before I invite Pranav for the next question, the first thing that comes to when you have a discussion with them about DeFi and stable coins, and do they feel that they can replicate the same success that US has seen? Are they seeing USD stablecoin as a threat to their sovereignty? Whenever are they okay with USDT and USDT being adopted in their country? So they want to do it because they want to counter USDT and USDC, or they want to embrace the way USDT and USDC has evolved and they also want to grow? So are they feeling threatened by the growth of USD-backed stablecoins?
I mean, so what happens is this. The problem, so when we talk about stablecoin, we need to separate the topics here. Stablecoin is usually created by a private company, not by governments. Okay, if it's created by a government, it could be like a CBDC, or it could be like a tokenized deposit if it's created by a bank. But most of the time, when people talk about a stablecoin, they mean a coin that's backed by by a currency. In the case of the dollar, it could be the dollar, but it's issued by a private company. Like Tether, is a private company, and Circle, which issues USDC, is a private company, and so on. So the problem is that people across the world, they want to hold dollars. That's the problem. Like, you've seen attempts to create like an euro stablecoin. It exists, but the usage is so small. In Brazil, you have Brazilian stablecoin. I'm sure there's companies in India that have issued some kind of stablecoin, but people don't want to hold it. They want dollar, because unless you are in the US and you already have dollars, then maybe not so much. But if you are in any other developing country, people want a dollar. And so the conundrum it creates is, if you are a country regulator, then what do you make of this? Are you happy to allow people to use and hold USD, the stable coins backed by the dollar? Because in a way, the US is very happy with this, because for the US it's amazing. They can disseminate the dollar all over the world instantly with a very fast kind of turnaround. For them is great. But for example, I know that a few weeks ago, the UK government where I live, they came up with this kind of new rule saying that they're going to limit the amount of stablecoin an individual can hold. And so this then got repelled. But for some time, I was thinking, oh my gosh, imagine. They must be very nervous, because if they're trying to put this kind of rule, then they're not happy people holding the dollar, right? And so, of course, for a government, it's a bit scary that people can just easily buy and sell and hold dollars like this with stable coins. But honestly, my opinion about this is that, you will have a very hard time preventing it, because once something gets invented, it's difficult to uninvent it. It's impossible. And if people want to hold it, they will hold it. They will find a way to hold it. Even like in China, for example, you have the Great Firewall, and people hold Tether and they use. But China is a good example, right? China doesn't want their citizens to, send money abroad. It's very strict. So people use Tether for this, and it's very difficult to prevent, because this is the whole point of having a decentralized blockchain with censorship resistance like Ethereum. It's very, very difficult to prevent people from doing whatever they want.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that is one of the reasons why, up till now, let's say until 2021, until 2024, I would say, up till now, even, stable coin has been used as a yield bearing, thing for people to degen on. And it's used on permissionless chains like Ethereum. So up till now, the adoption of stable coins has been up to the people who have have something to do with crypto, or have a wallet and know how to use it, and you know lending platforms, borrowing platforms, and they can go and do things on there, or they are on exchanges where USDC or USDT denominated token trading is used. So the usability of stable coins up till now has been very skewed only for crypto people and crypto interested ecosystem. For it to expand from that and become the rail for global payment, right? I think Rails is doing something really crucial and important. So would you just mind, first of all, saying what is the reason that we up till now have not seen banks adopting permissionless chains like Ethereum, which exists from like about 7 or 8 years? You have invested as an ICO, early ICO person in Ethereum as well. Why are these banks very hesitant on using Ethereum directly? And what is the solution that Raise specifically is offering that could solve for that specific thing and take stable coins to the next level of adoption, where it becomes a global rail for payment ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So when we, set out to build Rails, the first thing we did is we visited lots of banks all over the world. We spoke to banks like Santander and JP Morgan and Citibank and many major banks. And then we realized that they have some concerns and challenges when using public chains. Like you said, Pranav, is correct. Is blockchains have been around for a long time. Why are banks not using it yet? Right? And so what happens is, because of regulation, banks have concerns when using public chains. And the four most important concerns are around privacy. Because if you're a bank and you're doing a transaction, you don't want your competitor to see it because they could front run it. Or you need to protect the balances of your own clients. You cannot allow the world to see it. So privacy is very important for banks. And yet, a blockchain is not made for privacy. A blockchain is made for transparency. It's the exact opposite, right? And so this is a problem. Compliance is another problem, because when you're sending a transaction to an Ethereum address, you don't know who the owner of the address is, right? Because there's no kind of built-in KYC. And so, the fact that they are anonymous is a problem for banks. And then there's a problem with scalability. So banks, I don't know if people know this, but some banks, they do millions of transactions per day, right? There's a bank, for example, there's a bank in Brazil, they issue an instrument called CDB, they issue 1.6 million per day. Like, you can't do this in Ethereum, it's just going to blow up. So scalability is a big problem, and interoperability is a problem, because if they adopt a technology which doesn't talk to the other blockchains, then what's the point? You have a token that's not compatible with any other token. And so, given that, what we have done with Rails is we launched a system. So Rails is built of two pieces. One piece is what we call the privacy node. So this is an Ethereum blockchain that banks install on-prem. So they install in their own kind of infrastructure. And it's their own Ethereum. They can do whatever they want with it. They can give an account to each one of their users, the clients. They can install Uniswap in it. They can do whatever they want. It's a fully fledged Ethereum blockchain, but it is made in such a way that it fits with the IT department of the bank. So instead of being complicated with embedded databases and things that blockchains normally have, we use enterprise grade databases. Everything is enterprise grade, Kubernetes, and so banks know how to operate it. And so this is a permission chain. It's a private permission chain. Okay, so it's different. And the idea is that the banks can start with that. So they can start operations with these permission chains, and they can learn about it, and they can tokenize things. And then once they're ready, then they can port things over to the public chain. So this is the first part of Rails. The second part of Rails is the public chain. So the public chain is everything that I'm saying is EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine compatible. So the public chain is, like the name says, is a layer 1 public chain, which is compatible with Ethereum, but it is natively connected to these private chains that I mentioned. And so, if you are like a bank or a financial institution, you can install this privacy node. You can tokenize things over there. You can give accounts to all your clients over there. And then you can connect to the public chain and only send tokens to the public chain that you want to distribute, sell to people all over the world, right? So and this is exactly what we're doing. I'll give you an example. There's a client of ours called Nuclea. They are this big financial market infrastructure provider in Brazil. They issue $4 trillion of payments per year. So they're a big company. And what they're doing is they are tokenizing receivables. So what is receivables? It's like if you have a company and you buy, let's say, laptops from Dell, from the Dell company, then Dell is going to issue an invoice, right? And they're going to expect to be paid within 30 days or something like that, 60 days sometimes. You negotiate. But you can take this and tokenize it and sell it and get the money right now, a little bit less money. Let's say you give a 1% discount right now, but you get the money now. And then the person that bought it gets the money later, 60 days later. So this is a receivable. And we have, in Nuclea, has been tokenizing 10,000 of these receivables per week in Rails on the permission chain, the private chain. And now the next step is they're going to put some of this on the public chain to sell. Why? Because, it pays yield, right? You're talking about yield, Pranav, before about, stablecoins paying yield. This can pay 15, 20% yield per year. And it's yield coming from, regulated financial institutions. This is the kind of thing, that is going to be the future. Like, you're going to be able to, in a blockchain like Rails, you're going to be able to go and buy a piece of a vault that pays yield and is super secure, is regulated, and, there's very small risk. But you get the yield and you sell and buy the moment you want, from anywhere in the world. You don't have to be stuck in your own jurisdiction. And so this is the future we're trying to build with Rails. And the way that stablecoins come into play here is that on the Rails public chain, the gas token, gas is the token you use to pay the fee for the transaction. The gas token in the Rails public chain is a stablecoin. Why? Because, when you talk to banks, they're going to say, well, there's another problem using public chains. If I have to pay gas fees in Ether, and Ether changes the price, every hour, every minute, how can I budget anything? It's too difficult. So if in Rails, because the fees are paid in stable coins, you can budget because it's the same transaction will pay the same fee all the time. And so now, of course, because it's a stable coin, there's other uses. It's actually a stable coin you can send and receive, funds across the world and so on. So I think this theme of stablecoin is going to be more and more connected to anything to do with blockchain going forward.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very interesting explanation, and I think is a really good use case. Like I have talked with a lot of banks, especially in the US, living there, and they have a very different security standard of maintaining, and they have to be compliant. And so, if you think about it, in general, banks have existed for a very, very long time. So they have better regulations in terms of security and everything else. Hence, their IT department has to maintain a specific sort of standards which have to be compliant with that specific government law that exists.
Mhm.
And for that, what you explained, where it one of their laws is probably running systems inside indoors locally instead of putting it on a cloud or letting decentralized
Mhm.
verifiable validators which are like permissionless to run the infrastructure and run things like that. So I think you have in my opinion you have caught the right problem as well as the right solution to it, where the banks and their traditional approach and Web3 and its modern approach sort of combine to make a private as well as a public chain for stable coins specifically for banks,
Yeah.
and is definitely a very exciting project. My question on that, more Web3 specific, is that you guys have currently a token sale live.
Yeah.
Rails is going through a token sale right now. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, in the public chain, the gas token is a stable coin, but we also have another token called RLS from Rails. Yeah. And this token is the governance token for Rails, and it is also the token that has to be used when institutions are using Rails. They need to pay a fee to the Rails Foundation using this RLS token. Okay, and it's also the token that is used for validators, and so it's a utility token for Rails. And we are doing a private sale of this right now. It's open only for another 6 days, so I don't know when people are gonna watch this episode. But today is the 14th of October, and so this private sale is open for another 6 days. It's available in Republic, so it's republic.com/Rails, and Rails with a Y, right? RAYLS. And then anyone can actually go register and purchase token. Minimum purchase is $50. And the reason we're doing it is because so we are still selling the token at a low price. And we are gonna then do the TG, so the token generation event, the end of October, beginning of November, and we believe the price is gonna be different at that time. So, I mean, I don't want to be talking about price because actually what excites me is the utility of the token, right? Because what the reason we have a token is to bring the ecosystem together so that people have a common kind of frame to talk to each other and operate. We're really trying to bring together the financial institutions and the users of crypto. Yeah, because if you look at banks, for example, they have 6 billion users across the world, but there's only like 200 million people that use blockchain or public blockchains. Depends on who you ask. Sometimes you can see bigger numbers, but it's around this order of magnitude. And so, yeah, the public sale is live right now. Anyone is welcome to come and join us if you can, and we will do TG very soon, end of November, end of October, beginning of November. And then from that point on, we're going to have a testnet is already live. We have a new version of testnet coming online in the next few weeks, and mainnet is coming online first quarter of 2026 for the public chain. But on the permission chain, the private node that I mentioned that banks install on-prem, that is already in production. It's been in production for a year now, and it's actually generating revenue. We're making about $80,000 per month with these existing clients. And this money, this $80,000, it gets used to purchase RLS of the market, so the token. So there's like a nice kind of tokenomic system that we have built where the fees paid by banks are used to purchase the token so that they can be used to pay the foundation, the Rails Foundation. So this nice flywheel is already operating. And we're very excited because it took more than 3 years of developing this, and getting clients and explaining what we do to now finally be able to do the TG.
Right. Alex, you must be getting this question very frequently, that you have enterprise blockchains like Corda, Hyperledger. How is your platform different from them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going back to on the history of things, because when banks saw that they wanted to try blockchain and that they cannot use public blockchains for the problems I mentioned before, a few companies came up with private blockchains, like the ones you mentioned. Corda is from a company called R3, and Hyperledger Basu is from now it's the Linux Foundation.
You have
And
Polygon CDK enterprise solution as well.
yeah, Polygon, yeah. So there's a few of these. And the thing is, that in the beginning, what we have seen is this: banks and financial institutions, they install it, and then they use it for like a year or two, and then they abandon it, because the problem with this is that these things, they are not connected to a public chain. This is the problem. Vitalik said this himself. Last year he was in London, he gave a presentation. He mentioned exactly this problem. If you create a private network of blockchain, which is not connected to anything else on the public chains, you are creating an island. And no one wants to be in this island, because all the innovation is happening on the public chains. And so this is why we have built Rails this way, where we do have the private chains, like I said, similar to like Corda and Hyperledger Basu, but those are natively connected to the public chain, because otherwise you are just creating another island.
Alex, this is very interesting. Can you tell me, how can compliance and privacy coexist? It's like, this sounds impossible, honestly. How these two things can coexist? Because if you can break this, if you can find a solution to this problem, probably many problems can be solved in future.
Yeah. So, like I said in the beginning, privacy is a big challenge, for financial institutions. And what we have done in Rails is we developed a protocol called Enigma. And what this protocol is a zero knowledge based, so there's a technology called SNARKs. So we use this technology, which is a zero knowledge based technology, to obscure transactions. So when, say, for example, if a bank A sends funds to bank B, there is a transaction that is seen on chain, but if you look at it with a block explorer, you cannot see anything, like who's sending what to whom and how much was it, and you cannot see the balances, you cannot see anything. Now, like you said, the problem is, this sounds a little bit like Tornado Cash, when the developer of Tornado Cash is now in jail, and we don't want to go to jail. So the way we set this up is that this technology enables something called a view key. This view key allows regulators to look into transactions. So the transactions, they are private, but regulators, they are able to peek into the transaction that they have an interest in, and in that way stay compliant. Okay, because otherwise, the reason we built this, by the way, there's an interesting story. The Central Bank of Brazil invited us to participate in the CBDC project in the country, and we've been working with them for the last two years, having meetings every month, and we became very close to the project. The project is called DREX, is the Brazilian CBDC. And part of the requirements that they had was exactly this: like, how can we have privacy and yet be compliant? And that is why Enigma was built in this way, where you have the view key. And the next step we're doing now is we're porting over Enigma to the public chain, because on the Central Bank of Brazil project, this was all done with the permission chains, of course, because it's a very sensitive topic. But with the technology that we have now, we can port this over to the public chain. And we had something very interesting that we did 2 weeks ago. We did the work together with Uniswap, where we connected Enigma to Uniswap, and you can do private swaps. It's really cool. So you can put like a token on one side, a token on the other side, of the AMM, and you can swap them, and it's completely private. And this is using Enigma. It's a demo that we prepared. There's a video and everything. We haven't announced it yet, but we maybe I shouldn't even be talking about it here, but we will announce it, very soon.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I would say like this is a very unique use case where you take both the amazing ends and try to make them meet. My last question to you is, uh, let's say Rails is a very successful project. Based on the success of Rails, how do you see Web3 evolving, stablecoins evolving in the general sense of banking, tokenization, and far across just crypto?
So our end goal, our ultimate goal, is to bring the 6 billion users that are in banks today, but not in crypto, to bring them on chain, and to bring the $100 trillion plus of liquidity that is currently in TradFi, to bring that on chain too. Because if we have all the liquidity and we combine, TradFi with DeFi, that is the real power of the system. Because then it gives people the freedom to choose between using a DeFi protocol that maybe pays a little bit more yield, or using their banks, which gives them a sense of security that they maybe don't have in DeFi. And so this is, I think, I keep saying to people is, we're not trying. I don't think we are trying to win between TradFi and DeFi. We just want to combine these two systems for everything to be more efficient and cheaper and faster for everyone, for every people in the world.
Yeah, so I was just trying to understand that probably there are going to be times when people will say that, okay, this is like a bridge between the TradFi and DeFi. I mean, and that is what Rails is all about. So it's like a kind of, bridging these two ecosystem. And the biggest challenge right now is that the banks are scared about it, and DeFi guys want to bring on these entities from TradFi, but there is no solution. And I'm glad that today we were able to have a discussion over it, Alex. Thank you very much for coming on to this platform and making and bringing us some amazing stuff. And we'll continue to bring you on maybe later, and might meet you somewhere in a meet, maybe at some point, maybe in Dubai, maybe. Right.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to you. Thank you.
Thank you.